Okay, this time around, we'll be getting into legal definitions and more of Emer de Vatell. Well, have some of what I find interesting. Legal definitions as found in Black's Law, 4th edition. In all that I put out, I try very hard not to use my opinion very much, as I prefer for each of you to reach your own opinions or factual beliefs. If I do put in, I try to remember to say so. So let's go ahead and get started. Color, an appearance, semblance, or simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance. A possible assumed exterior concealing the lack of reality or a disguise or pretext. Color of authority, that semblance or presumption of authority sustaining the acts of the public officer, which is derived from his apparent title to the office or from the writ or other process in his hands apparently valid and regular. Color of law, the appearance or semblance without substance of legal right. Color of act, color of office, an act unjustly done by countenance of an office being grounded upon corruption, to which the office is as a shadow and color. A claim or assumption of right to do and act by virtue of an office made by a person who is legally destitute of any such right. Such person must be of at least officer de facto. Colorable, that which has or gives color, that which is in appearance only, not in reality what it purports to be. Counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. Colorable cause or invocation of jurisdiction, with reference to actions for malicious prosecution. A colorable cause or invocation of jurisdiction means that a person apparently qualified has appeared before a justice and made a complaint under oath and in writing stating some facts which in connection with other facts constitute a criminal offense or bear a similitude thereof. Combination, a conspiracy or confederation of men for unlawful or violent deeds. Commerce, exchange of goods, productions, or property of any kind. Intercourse by way of trade and traffic between different peoples or states or citizens or inhabitants thereof, not only the purchase, sale, and exchange of commodities, but also the instrumentalities and agencies which it is promoted and means the appliances by which it is carried on, the transportation of persons as well as goods, both by land and sea, also interchange of ideals, sentiments, etc., as between man and man. Affidavit, a written or printed declaration or statement of facts made voluntarily and confirmed by oath or affirmation of a party making it, taken before an officer having authority to administer such oath. A statement or declaration reduced in writing and sworn to or affirmed before some officer who has authority to administer an oath or affirmation. Affidavits are of two kinds: those which serve as evidence to advise the court in the decision of some preliminary issue or determination of substantial right, and those which merely serve to invoke judicial power. Affirmative statute, a statute couched in affirmative or mandatory terms. Excuse me again. One which directs the doing of an act or declares what shall be done, as a negative statute is one which prohibits a thing from being done, or declares what shall not be done. Blackstone describes affirmative acts of Parliament as those wherein justice is directed to be done according to the law of the land. A public agent, an agent of the public, the state, or the government, a person appointed to act for the public in some matter pertaining to the administration of the government or public business. Allodial, free, not holden of any lord or superior, owned without obligation of vassalage or fealty. The opposite of feudal, allodium, land held absolutely in one's own right and not of any lord or superior. Land not subject to feudal duties or burdens, and a state held by absolute ownership, without recognizing any superior to whom any duty is due on account of thereof. Oh, now some from battle. And the wording's been changed a little to match today's types of governments. As soon as the elected attacks the constitution of the state, they break the contract which bound the people to them. The people become free by the acts of the sovereigns elected, who and can no longer view them but as usurpers who would load the people with oppression. This truth is acknowledged by every sensible writer whose pen is not enslaved by fear or sold for hire. If authority of the elected is limited and regulated by the fundamental laws, the elected on exceeding bounds prescribe them commands without any right and even without just title. The nation is not obliged to obey them, but may resist their unjust attempts, but that their commands are not less obligatory, as founded on the lawful right to command. That nation, by giving them absolute authority, has reserved no share of it to itself, and has submitted to their discretion. We might be content with answering that in this light there are not any sovereigns who are completely and fully absolute. But in order to remove all these vain subletities, let us remember the essential end of civil society. Is it not to labor in concert for the common happiness of all? Was it not with this view that every citizen divested themselves of their rights and resigned their liberties? Could a society make such use of its authority as irrevocably to surrender itself and all members to the discretion of cruel elected representatives? No, certainly, since it would no longer possess any right in itself. If it were disposed to oppress a part of the citizen, if they become a scourge of the state, they degrade themselves and are no better than a public enemy, against whom a nation may and ought to defend itself. And if they carry their tyranny to the utmost height, why should even life of so cruel and a perfidious enemy be spared? Excuse me. But it is of the utmost importance to observe that this judgment can only be passed by the nation or by a body which represents it, and that the nation itself cannot make any attempt on the persons of the sovereigns except in cases of extreme necessity, and when the sovereign, the elected, by violating their laws and threatening the safety of the people, put themselves in a state of war against them. We, the people, in more common causes, when the elected violates the fundamental laws, when they attack the privileges of their subjects, citizens, or they be absolute when their government, without being carried to extreme violence, manifestly turns to the ruin of the nation. It may resist them and pass sentence of them and withdraw their obedience. But though this may be done, still the persons should be spared, that for the welfare of the state. Oh, excuse me. Whoever has well weighed the force of indisputable principles we have established will be convinced that when it is necessary to resist the elected who have become tyrants, the right of the people is still the same, whether they be made absolute by laws or was not, because that right is derived from what the object of all political society is, the safety of the nation, which is the supreme law. Note, in my opinion, are we beginning to see any similarities to our Declaration of Independence? Can you see how Vattel's writings may have influenced that wonderful document? Can Vattel's writings help us understand much better the different types of governments and constitutions, and in how those contracts should work, when we the people stay vigilant and keep for ourselves control of our different types of government? Back to Black's Law. Act, verb, in Scotch practice, to do or perform judicially, to enter of record, acted in the books of a journal. Act, noun, donates affirmative expression of will, purpose, ideal of performance, and primarily that which is done or doing, exercise of power, or effect of which power exerted is cause, a performance. A deed, excuse me. In its most general sense, this noun signifies something done voluntarily by a person, exercise of an individual's power, an effect produced in the external world by an exercise of power of a person objectively prompted by intention and approximately caused by a motion of will. In a more technical sense, it means something done voluntarily by a person, area of such a nature that certain legal consequences attach to it. Thus, a grantor acknowledges conveyance to his act or deed. The terms being synonymous, it may denote oh, excuse me. It may denote something done by an individual as a private citizen, or as an officer, or by a body of men, as a legislature, a council, or of court of justice, including not merely physical acts, but also decrees, edicts, laws, judgments, resolves, and awards and determinations. Some general laws made by Congress of the United States are styled joint resolutions. These have the same force and effect as those styled acts. Carries ideal of performance. In civil law, an act is a writing which states in legal form that a thing has been said, done, or agreed. Public acts are those which have public authority, which have been made before public officers, are authorized by a public seal, and have been made public by authority of a magistrate, or which have been extracted and been properly authenticated from public records. Legislation, a written law formally ordained or passed by a legislative power of the state. called in England an Act of Parliament, and in the United States an Act of Congress or of the legislature, a statute. The words bill and law are frequently used synonymously with act, but incorrectly, a bill being only that draft or form of an act presented to the legislature but not enacted. Act does not include ordinance or regulations made by local authorities or even statutes having only a local application, although sometimes used interchangeably with measure and law. Acts are either public or private. Public acts, also called general acts or general statutes, or statutes at large, are those which relate to the community in general or establish a universal rule for governance of the whole body politic. And this is a really good point to stop. Oh, sorry about that. As always, this small amount leaves much for us to get into, and we will a little at a time to help information overload and even burnout. Too much time digging into all this all at once, and you could experience that overload or even burnout. Again, if you have found this to be beneficial in any way, please like my YouTube and Rumble channels. Oh, and as always, remember to share across all your social platforms, and most importantly, with family and friends in other countries, as this is a global spiritual war. God bless and blessings to, and much gratitude to all.